Picture this: a man standing in silence, shoulders broad, veins hardened by work and discipline. His body could crush bone, his hands could build kingdoms. Yet, it is not steel that tests him, not the edge of a sword, not the roar of a rival. His greatest test comes softly in the curl of a smile, the perfume of skin, the promise of pleasure whispered through delicate lips. Ask yourself, brother, how many men have fallen, not in battle, but in the bedroom? How many warriors bled, not from spears, but from surrender? The ancients knew this truth. They told us in myth, it is never brute force that topples man, but temptation. A serpent never charges, it coils, it whispers, it waits. And when it strikes, it does not pierce the body first, it pierces the will. Man is easily destroyed, not by what he resists, but by what he craves, wrote Schopenhauer. He was right. The battlefield of masculinity is not in the world outside, but in the fire that burns inside. And this is where the snake enters. Consider the brilliance of the serpent. It does not go to Adam, it goes to Eve. Not because Adam is stronger, but because Adam's strength means nothing if his hunger is ungoverned. The snake knows that the quickest way to a man's downfall is not through combat, but through desire. Ask yourself, why do you think kings, generals, and emperors, men who could dominate thousands, so often collapsed in the arms of a single woman? Why did Samson, a man who tore lions apart, lose his strength not in war, but on the lap of Delilah? Why did Antony, commander of Rome's armies, surrender to Cleopatra? Why did men who ruled others fail to rule themselves? The serpent weaponizes Eros desire. It doesn't force, it seduces. It doesn't shout, it whispers. It doesn't fight you. It waits for you to fight yourself. And here lies the bitter truth. What destroys men is never what they cannot have. It's what they cannot stop wanting. Nietzsche once said, "The degree and kind of a man's sexuality reach up into the ultimate pinnacle of his spirit." The serpent understood this long before Nietzsche put it to words. Desire is not just appetite, it is power. To direct it is to rule. To mismanage it is to perish. The snake exploits this law. It understands that if a man cannot govern his hunger, he will bend his knees before it. And when desire enslaves him, he will call it love. He will call it passion. He will call it destiny. But in reality, it is chains. The strategy of the serpent is timeless. Today, it doesn't speak through trees and fruit. It speaks through glowing screens, through bodies turned into commodities, through every image designed to pull your instinct into surrender. You might think you are free. You are not. Every algorithm, every advertisement, every temptation is a modern serpent whispering, "Take it, taste it, no one will know." The question is, will you obey? Because here is the law. If you cannot master your hunger, you will always be mastered. Jung described the serpent as a symbol of the unconscious, the instinctual primal force. If you do not confront it, it controls you. If you bury it, it coils deeper, only to rise when you are weakest. And men today, they are collapsing. Collapsing not because of war, but because of weakness. Collapsing because they believe masculinity is muscle, money, or dominance over others, while ignoring the one battlefield that matters, the self. Think about the last time you craved something. Not needed, craved it. The sweat on your palms, the tightening in your chest, the racing heartbeat. You called it excitement, but what it really was slavery. Now imagine the serpent wrapping around you, not crushing, not choking, just whispering. The air grows heavy, the pulse quickens, the mind justifies. You hear the voice. Just once, just a taste, just one more. This is the strike. It is not the woman, it is not the serpent, it is you betraying yourself. And here lies the question, will you be your own executioner? Men love to say, "She made me fall, she tempted me." No, she did nothing but exist. The serpent gave you an option, but it was you who surrendered. To blame women for male weakness is cowardice. To blame desire itself is ignorance. The truth is harder. If you fall, it is because you lacked mastery. A lion does not curse the gazelle for running. A man does not curse fire for burning. Why then should a man curse woman for being desirable? Masculinity is not about blaming. It is about conquering. Conquering not her, not the serpent, but the storm inside yourself. That's a powerful and complex script. Philosophical, masculine, layered with metaphor and history. To reduce it effectively by half, while keeping its essence, tone, rhythm, and philosophical gravity, I'll preserve all core ideas. The serpent's strategy, Eve as vessel, shame, silence, and masculine rebirth. While cutting redundancy, extended examples, and slower transitions. Understand this. The serpent's greatest weapon was never venom or force. It was desire. And unless you master it, you are not a man, you are prey. Not to beasts, but to whispers. Not to enemies, but to your own hunger. Nietzsche warned, "He who fights monsters must beware becoming one." But what if the monster is your appetite? What if the monster is you? The serpent's brilliance was never in battle, it was in manipulation. It made Adam fight himself. That is still the battle every man faces. A planted idea doesn't die, it spreads. The serpent didn't just tempt Eve, he transformed her into an instrument of persuasion. Adam wasn't approached directly because men resist force, but rarely beauty. The enemy wearing the face of affection goes unseen. Control has never come from strength, it comes from suggestion. And suggestion, when wrapped in affection, becomes compulsion. Eve didn't merely eat, she offered. The serpent never whispered to Adam, it spoke through trust. Adam didn't eat fruit, he consumed another's conviction. Men fall less by enemies than by allies. The serpent knew this. He weaponized loyalty, not lust. Every man must learn. A woman can be his greatest strength or his sharpest downfall. Her influence builds or breaks. Without discernment, you'll mistake devotion for surrender. History repeats the pattern. Samson undone by Delilah, Troy by Helen, Antony by Cleopatra. The serpent doesn't tempt men directly, it whispers through the women they love. So ask yourself, who speaks with your woman's voice, her or the culture behind her? The serpent's whispers live on through screens, scrolls, trends. It no longer tempts from trees, but from algorithms, redefining truth, power, and love. Women absorb the message, carry it home, and men eat the fruit again, unaware. How many men today abandon purpose because of ideas not their own? The serpent doesn't conquer men, it conquers culture, then uses women as its messengers. True strength isn't dominance, it's discernment. To love the woman, but resist the whisper behind her. To separate affection from obedience. Adam failed that test. His sin wasn't love, it was blind loyalty. Picture the silence after the bite, the garden unchanged, yet heavy. That silence is every man's moment of shame, the instant he realizes he surrendered not to force, but persuasion. Shame, not defeat, strips authority. It's born within, burns identity, and silences purpose. Adam didn't fear the serpent or God, he feared himself. He hid from the truth that he surrendered control. Every man knows that feeling, the quiet collapse after betraying your own standard. That's shame. Men rarely fall by battle, they fall by appeasement. Piece by piece, they trade conviction for comfort until they wake up as strangers to themselves. Shame distorts vision. The world darkens not because it changed, but because you did. Authority dies where shame begins. Adam's fall wasn't the bite, it was the silence. When he refused to speak, masculinity cracked. Men today hide the same way, not in gardens, but behind screens, success, and noise. Shame dresses as pride, laughter, distraction. Yet the silence inside remains. A man who fails privately cannot lead publicly. The serpent wins when a man is mute before his duty. His silence becomes inherited, passed to sons and societies. Jung warned, The man who avoids the mirror never knows himself. Adam hid from that mirror. So do men today. The serpent didn't want rebellion, it wanted disarmed authority. A shamed man is harmless. A silenced man builds nothing. And that's our world, men, with power but no conviction, voice but no authority, hiding behind fig leaves of achievement while shame rules within. The serpent still whispers, but through those you love most. Masculinity's true test is not external victory, but internal clarity. And clarity dies in silence. So ask yourself, where have you traded strength for peace? Where have you surrendered voice for comfort? Where have you hidden behind the modern fig leaf of distraction? The garden is gone, but the pattern remains. Every man still faces the serpent's ancient trick. Shame that silences, loyalty that blinds, temptation that flatters. Masculinity isn't perfection, it's confrontation. To face shame, reclaim authority, and rebuild purpose. Adam's fall wasn't final. It was the start of awakening. The serpent underestimated this. Destruction can birth discipline. Collapse can spark clarity. When God asked Adam, "Where are you?" it wasn't location, it was identity. And that same call echoes now. Where are you, man? Not in place, but in purpose. Heidegger called man a being toward death, defined by the courage to face truth without illusion. Adam's confrontation began there, and so does yours. The serpent was external, but the shame, that was internal. And this is the hard masculine truth. No matter who whispers in your ear, no matter who places the fruit in your hand, no matter what culture shouts from its platforms, the final decision rests with you. Authority is not lost to the serpent. Authority is surrendered by the man. This is the blueprint's first step. You must confront the serpent within yourself. Not the literal animal, but the whisper that says, just give in. Just stay silent. Just take the easier path. That whisper lives inside every man. The true test of masculinity is not slaying external enemies. It is slaying the subtle serpent coiled around your own will. Nietzsche declared, "The man who cannot command himself should obey." And many can command themselves, but much is still lacking before they can obey themselves. Commanding yourself means silencing the inner serpent. Without that, no authority you project outward will ever last. Authority is not about dominance. Authority is the weight you choose to carry. Adam fell because he abandoned responsibility. The serpent exploited the gap between his role and his action. The only way to reverse that fall is to reclaim responsibility fully. Ask yourself, where in your life have you abandoned responsibility? Where have you expected others, your woman, your boss, your parents, even fate itself to carry weight that was designed for you? Men today avoid responsibility like Adam avoided God's voice. But here's the masculine paradox. The more responsibility you shoulder, the freer you become. Weak men see responsibility as a cage. Strong men see it as a crown. Philosopher Marcus Aurelius, in Meditations, wrote, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one." That is the essence of reclaiming responsibility. Stop debating. Stop excusing. Pick up the weight and carry it. Authority is not restored by talk. It is not restored by apologies. It is not restored by intention. Authority is restored by consistent, disciplined action. Adam covered himself with fig leaves, an act of hiding, not restoring. Many modern men repeat this mistake, performing superficial gestures to look strong instead of doing the internal work to become strong. Authority requires proof. Proof to yourself, not to others. Every rep in the gym, every page of wisdom studied, every dollar earned through discipline, every boundary enforced, every temptation resisted, that is the rebuilding of masculine authority. You do not speak authority into existence. You embody it until it can no longer be denied. Carl Jung once wrote, "The man who is possessed by his shadow is always standing in his own light and falling into his own pit." Restoring authority means integrating your shadow, facing your shame, your failures, your weakness, and refusing to let them dictate your future. You drag them into the light and forge strength from them. Now let's confront the most controversial element of the symbol, the woman. Eve was not evil, she was influenced. But the serpent knew her influence over Adam was powerful. And here lies the eternal truth. A woman will always have the power to amplify or undermine a man's authority. The difference lies in the man's discernment. If you allow culture, whispers, and untested ideas to enter her unchecked, she becomes a channel of the serpent. But if you, as a man, stand firm, rooted in principle, discerning in leadership, she becomes your ally, your multiplier, your partner in building. This is the masculine role, not to dominate the woman, not to silence her, but to guide with clarity so she cannot be weaponized against you. Men who abandon this role repeat Adam's mistake. Men who embrace it create legacies. Kierkegaard once remarked, "The tyrant dies and his rule is over. The martyr dies and his rule begins." In the same way, when a man sacrifices his silence and takes up the courage to lead with discernment, his influence multiplies far beyond himself. Adam hid, but the awakened man fights, not in the way boys fantasize about bloody wars and cinematic battles, but in the real war, the battle for clarity, discipline, and unshakable conviction. The awakened man recognizes temptation for what it is, not just sin, but strategy. A chess game designed to strip him of authority, and he responds not with retreat, but with ruthless awareness. Ask yourself, are you awake, or are you still hiding? Do you recognize the whispers shaping your decisions? Do you feel the serpent's strategy when it cloaks itself in beauty, comfort, or convenience? Or are you still blind, pretending the battle isn't happening? True awakening is painful because it strips away illusions, but without that pain, no growth is possible. The serpent feeds on passivity. The awakened man starves it by action. Adam could not return to the garden. Neither can you. Once shame enters, innocence dies. But the masculine truth is this: innocence isn't the goal. Wisdom is. Strength is. Authority tested by fire is. Your task isn't to rebuild paradise, but to forge something stronger, born of pain, refined by shame, hardened in fire. That is the line between boy and man. The boy hides, the man builds. Nietzsche said, "What does not kill me makes me stronger." The serpent thought it killed Adam's authority, but for the awakened man, that wound becomes his forge. The question isn't what happened in the garden. It's what happens in yours. Where do you still hide? Where do you still surrender your authority to whispers? The serpent still hisses. The woman still influences. The man still faces the test. Silence or strength, shame or authority, surrender or awakening. The story of the woman and the snake isn't myth, it's a mirror. A reflection of the battle men still fight: desire versus discipline, illusion versus truth, pleasure versus purpose. The snake never dies, it only sheds its skin. The woman never disappears, she changes her mask. Today, she may appear as a screen, a scroll, the promise of love without cost. The serpent no longer hisses, it flatters. You deserve this. You've earned this. No one will know. But the masculine core knows. Man doesn't fall from attack, he collapses from within. And the first collapse is always self-control. Nietzsche warned, "When fighting monsters, beware becoming one. The abyss gazes back. The abyss is temptation. The abyss is surrender." So what does this mean? Never trade the crown of reason for the crumbs of desire. Power isn't in conquering others, but in mastering yourself. The snake studies your wounds. It whispers where you're weakest. Without discipline, you fall. But falling isn't final. Weakness isn't permanent. Rise, sharpen yourself. This isn't about women, it's about sight. Temptation always wears the face you crave most. Blind men confuse beauty for goodness. The eternal test remains: appetite or mastery, whispers or principle, pleasure or legacy. Every surrender, places your crown at another's feet. History is littered with men who traded greatness for a moment's sweetness, and shaped by those who conquered themselves first. So the story returns to where it began: the garden, the woman, the snake. But this time, you are not Adam. You are the man who sees, who decides. Victory isn't avoiding the snake or the woman, it's mastering yourself before both. So, brothers, the serpent still whispers, the question is, will you listen or will you rise? Mastery begins within. The crown belongs to the man who commands himself.